Morning. Hi, guys. Good morning. Welcome to tea time. How's everybody doing today? Today, we are going to be talking all the tea about the worst moments of your life, kind of pointing you to actually create the success, the dream, the thing that you want. Now, I know I come on a lot and talk about just, aspiring towards the things that you want in your life. And for some persons, myself included, um, you have to be in this space almost of like a constant reminder to reframe the way that you think about things. And it occurred to me this morning that, uh, you know, sometimes as you're going through life, you don't recognize how many signals you're getting along the way that are actually taking you towards the thing that you ultimately want. Good morning. I have my tea time regulars over here saying hello. So this morning I really wanted to spend just a few moments talking about contrast, and I wanted to explain the concept of contrast because I think it's actually a hidden gem that you may be missing as you are moving through the different things that you're experiencing in life. And when I say a hidden gem, because it don't really feel like a gem, right? It don't really feel like a gem, but it actually is. So we're going to talk a little bit about contrast and how, sometimes the things that feel like they are the worst are actually leading you towards what you would consider to be the best. Happy Saturday to you too, really. Good morning, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about contrast. We're going to talk about some contrast that I experienced in my week this week, because I got to give you all the tea. As a matter of fact, you would have been hearing about a lot of contrast that I would have been experiencing over the last 2 weeks. But you know what? I think sometimes when we think about contrast, we maybe, when it sounds subtle, it doesn't even maybe make sense to some of us right off the bat. And sometimes when we think about problems, we think about the big things. We don't think about the subtle innuendos that happen in our life that are really pointing us towards either making decisions that we want in a faster way or actually lining up with what we actually want. Because many times we get lost in thinking about things that seem like these big dreams when ultimately it's those small steps that you have to take along the way that are ultimately going to get you to the outcome that you desire. So if you have not already, I'm over here with my tea. It's my tea's been steeping for like 20-30 minutes now. Okay, it's over steeped. I'm in an Airbnb. I'm actually in Toronto right now. I don't remember where I last was when you last saw me. I can't remember. I'm like waking up and it's like, what day is it? What city am I in? I'm fully living that life right now, guys. But no complaints. I love it. So I'm in Toronto right now, and I'm sat at an Airbnb, and having my mint tea. Thankfully, they had one mint tea bag. You're real Jamaican, right? When you have to get the last mint tea bag, it feels so good. Yeah, so I'm having my last mint tea bag, no sweetener, because I'm literally, this morning I woke up and I had throbbing headaches. I said, let me give myself something soothing, so that while we're having tea together, we can talk all the things. So we're going to start off with understanding, what exactly is this concept of contrast. And I like to look at contrast not just as challenges. Contrast is literally when you're experiencing anything you don't want, right? Whatever the thought is, sometimes it's a thought that you don't want to be thinking, right? It's an experience you don't want to be having. It's a situation you do not want to be in. It's a result you did not want to receive, right? Those are all moments of contrast. And what we sometimes lose when we are in the experience of contrast is we lose the benefit or the understanding, the purpose. We lose understanding the purpose and the benefit of the contrast that we're experiencing in that moment. Oh, a card just ultimately fell out. That's not the one I want though, so we're not going to talk about that one. So I'm here, I'm shuffling my deck of cards, my intention cards, and I wanted to make sure that for some of us that maybe, just moving through life and wanting something or seeking something and either getting consistent denial or having this experience that doesn't seem like it's pointing you in the right direction, to understand that contrast moments are actually clues that are setting you up for ultimately where you want to get to. And your job in the middle of the contrast, right, is to not get lost in the conclusion that you're not going to have the desire of your heart. Because that's what happens to most of us. What happens is when you are in these contrasting moments, these difficult moments, these results or experiences or situations that feel like they're overwhelming you or they're not taking you to what you ultimately are wanting in your life, we sometimes come to the conclusion that this thing that we are after or this desire that we have, or sometimes it is not even a desire you knew you had. Sometimes you just have a thought that says, oh, I guess that wasn't supposed to be for me. You just automatically draw a conclusion from contrast that you are headed in the wrong direction or this is not what you're supposed to experience. And we buy into that belief. What if I told you that contrast actually allows you to step into that transformation in a faster way if you actually knew what to do with it, right? If you actually knew what to do when you were in those moments, then that same contrast, that same thing that you think is taking you away from what you want is actually helping you to get to what you want, and possibly faster or in the right or appropriate time. So don't get caught up in the misery of the conclusion that I'm not supposed to have this thing, right? And there's so many examples that we could pull on, because I know that you are experiencing this or have experienced this at some point in time in your life. It may just be that you weren't really paying attention to the patterns and you weren't really looking out for those opportunities to use contrast as a way to step closer to the things that you ultimately want to experience. So contrast in the context of personal growth or goal setting is indicators. You may look at them as indicators that are taking you away from what you want. But it's literally the same thing as seeing breadcrumbs towards what you want. Let me explain. So today, like literally this morning, I actually knew I was going to talk about this. And this morning, as I was getting prepared, I opened my email and I saw in the subject line, your opportunity with this particular company. Because I've been out here doing business development, looking for work, like literally trying to really push, or I would say not push, I'm not so much of a pusher, but I've been out here just like, sending off these proposals and applications and really looking for ways to grow my business. And I'm also seeking funding and just doing all these different things that I didn't really think I was going to do. And in some ways, I've even been talking about it. I've been arguing for my limitations. Let's put it that way. Oh, I'm not good at selling. I'm not good at fundraising. I'm not good at, that's not my zone of genius. I've been saying those kind of things to myself. And then here comes this email. And the email set up already to tell you what you don't want to hear. You know what I mean? Like just the subject line of the email is basically telling me you didn't get the thing. We know those emails. It's like those phone calls from the guy or the girl. Well, or not even the phone call, the text message. We're in 2024. Ain't nobody calling you that says, I don't think this is gonna work. No, I don't want to go on that date. Oh, I can't bother to see that movie. It's that phrase or that word that you know. So here comes this email. The subject line alone, I kind of knew where it was going, and I opened it, and of course, it was like, thank you for da 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 da. Once they said thank you for, and I'm literally, guys, I'm literally talking about what your own mind is going through when you open messages like this that are basically telling you no, right? And I read it, and it was very graciously saying to me that I did not get the opportunity that I was seeking. And, that they thought I was very impressive and all the things. And, I know I'm impressive. I don't need you to tell me that I'm impressive. Anyway, I'm just being cheeky because I didn't get the thing, right? So in the moment, I'm experiencing all this contrast, right? But funny enough, not as much as I used to experience. Hi, morning, Kish, morning. So I'm reading this thing and it's telling me, you didn't get this opportunity. And that is a contrasting experience. Okay. So this is the path that I can start to go down, or I used to. And I'll be honest with you guys, like my negative stories, my negative thought patterns are amazing. Just like how I sit here and I have these conversations with you, and some of you will message me and be like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear this morning. That was so amazing. Yeah. You see, my mind works just as well with the negative stuff. I can make up the most amazing stories that are arguing for my limitations. And the difference is that now I realize when I'm making up those stories, as opposed to before, where I would just have the thoughts just running on and not realizing that I'm in an opportunity where I can actually use the contrast as a way to actually think about what I really want. So this morning, I get the email that tells me I didn't get the thing. And old Stacy would have been like, I knew that wasn't for me, God, why did I even bother to submit for this thing? Why did I even bother putting this proposal? I'd be obsessing about all the things that may not be right with me. I wonder why they never pick me. Like, I would be going through that whole dissection of, let me go back and look at the proposal and see what I did wrong. Like, I would be doing that downward spiral, right? And new Stacy, after doing a lot of the work that I encourage you guys to do, like working on my mind before I go to bed, waking up in the morning and pulling for gratitude, or seeking to not get right on the phone and start, looking at other people's lives, but really just focusing on creating a beautiful day, going out in nature, just all these little things I've been encouraging you guys to do. Because I've gotten into the habit of doing those things, when I experience this contrast that's telling me something that I don't want to hear, I now sit with it and like, oh, okay, so that didn't work out that way. Do I still want to go after this opportunity with this particular company or this particular client? Is this something that I still want? I don't immediately just automatically feel like, because they told me no, that it's something I will no longer be able to have access to. No, I first just think, do I still want this? And I know you may be thinking, but what do you mean? Do you still want this? They told you no. Yeah, but I could still want it, right? Another thought that I will sometimes have is, is this good for me? Is this actually taking me in the direction that I want? Or is this pointing out that this is not the right time? Maybe this isn't the right time. So I start to now think about the possibilities that are in this no, the possibilities that are in this contrast experience, because I recognize that every single thing in life is for me. Everything. Every single thing in life is for you. Everything. Every disappointment, every setback, every challenge, every rejection, every no, every single moment of contrast that you experience is for you. And it may not feel good. Like, guys, I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a clinical depression survivor. I'm a divorce survivor. And yes, you got to survive divorce. I'm, and I'm telling you, all of those things in my life were for me. It's either going to work on me or it's going to work for me, right? It's always working. It's always for me. And so when I got the email this morning, I was like, oh, this is really great. This is an opportunity for me to step into determining whether or not this is a direction I still want to take in my life. Do I still want to work with this company? And maybe the answer to that is yes, but maybe not in that way. So let's look back at what are the ways that we can work with this company. And surprisingly enough, the last couple of days, I've been hearing the name of the company come up all around me because I'm here in Canada, which was another buck up. You know me, I was a buck up into things. I'm here in Canada, looking at, attending this big conference. It's a tech conference because I'm a woman in tech, and a lot of my income comes from tech. And so I'm here with a whole lot of different entrepreneurs, a whole bunch of entrepreneurs that are also in the tech space or using tech-enabled, building tech-enabled companies, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're talking a lot about the different companies that provide funding for entrepreneurs or for people who are giving money to entrepreneurs. And this company's name just happens to be coming up, you know, and I realized that, well, maybe the way that I was thinking about working with a company is not the way that I should be. Maybe I should just be looking to get money from them. Like, so I start to think of all the different possibilities that exist in this contrast experience. Are you guys getting what I'm putting down? Are you picking it up? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? That's ultimately what I'm saying. So the first thing that we have to understand is the reason for contrast in your life is for you to come to the actual conclusion that you want. Before we were talking about accepting the conclusion that you're not supposed to have what you think this thing is telling you, that you're not good enough or this is not for you, right? That's not it. Contrast is pointing you to the work that you need to do or the clarity that you need to get to the actual conclusion that you're supposed to get to. Okay? So there are a couple of things that you need to do in order to leverage contrast. In order to leverage these moments where you're getting that rub and you are possibly looking at it as, the no that is never gonna become a yes, right? And I want to use a couple of examples because there's variations to this. I feel that the way that life works on our behalf is that it's always giving you breadcrumbs. I call them Jesus breadcrumbs, right? It's always giving you that next little step to take, that path that lights up so that you know what direction. And we don't always know all the steps, and that's where we get kind of tripped up because we expect to know all the steps. It's like, well, what am I going to do now? We want to know every single step that we're supposed to take on the way to what we want, but that's not always clear for you, and it doesn't need to be. You just need to take the next right step. Sometimes the next right step can be stepping away from the desire, the pushing of trying to get the thing, the hard work, the push of trying to get to the thing, because the energy that you're putting behind it is not going to get you there any faster. It's only going to cause you frustration and stress and overwhelm and burnout, right? So you want to make sure that you first and foremost recognize that you're having a contrasting experience. And you have them every day. There is no day that goes by that you don't experience contrast in the subtle things. Sometimes it may not have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be a no, or it doesn't have to be somebody telling you something that you don't want to hear, or you failing at something. It doesn't have to look like that all the time. Sometimes it can just be, you walk in and you trip, That's a moment of contrast, right? It can be you get in a like for me and the party that I'm traveling with, we get in an Uber and we land at the Airbnb that we're supposed to be staying at. And when we get out, it looks like we're in the middle of nowhere and there's a few mentally ill people walking around, and you're like, oh my God, Uber driver, please don't leave me. That's a moment of contrast. Right? So all these little things, guys, that happen in our lives are just indicators of us getting closer to what we want. But we spend a lot of time getting caught up in, many of us spend a lot of time getting caught up in what we feel in that moment. And so you have to recognize, first of all, that, oh, this is not what I want. What do I want? Don't get stuck in that not what I want experience. Okay? So you have to first recognize the contrast, understand what it is, and then recognize that this is just pointing you in the right direction, the thing towards whatever it is that you are seeking to achieve, to get, to experience, right? And then using that recognition as a way to choose your next right step. Because what happens is, you know what you don't want, and then you know what you do want. So if you can use contrast in that way, instead of getting stuck in the conclusion of I'm not getting what I want, and then going down that negative path, thought pattern, what you do instead is you, okay, this is not what I want. What do I want? And that right there, my friends, is oftentimes the point where people get stuck, because they may not actually know what they want. You may not actually know what you want. And I've talked to you guys about this before, but you have to recognize it in its subtlest moments as well as in the more clear moments. So a clear moment is if you are going after something very specific and you hit upon roadblocks. I was just reading an article this past week that talked about the founder of this tool called Canva. I don't know how many of you are in the creative world or in that graphic space, but there's this tool, this graphic design software called Canva, right? And you can use it to do pretty much anything graphic-y. You know, you can do a presentation, like instead of using PowerPoint, you can use it to do your slides for a presentation. You can use it to make a flyer, to go on Instagram, to go, you know, it's really a really great tool, and it makes it so easy. You know, so a lot of persons who create things like me in my business life, or even working on tea time, I can go and I can make a quick flyer on Canva, and it's much easier than, you know, if I was a designer, I had to go into Adobe Photoshop and get all fancy. Anyway, so I was listening to this story about the woman, it's a lady that came up with the idea of Canva, and she was the person that founded it, right? And I watched a big event that they had like last week. They had this huge event where they were talking about all the new features of Canva and how great it is and blah, blah, blah. And literally like a few days later, I think it was probably Monday of this past week or Tuesday of this past week, I was watching a news story about the same woman that founded this company, right? And they said she got over 100 no's to get money to help her to build the company. Can you imagine that? Over 100 people told her, we don't like your idea, we ain't giving you no money. Over 100, which means that she literally went to, well, it may be over 200 people, but she at least went to over 100 people to get money to help her to build her business, and got rejected that many times. Okay? And so in that instance, that is clear contrast. That's not subtle contrast. That's clear contrast when you are getting told, no, you cannot have this thing that is the desire of your heart. And so she clearly knew what she wanted. She wanted to build a company that would help people to do graphics easier. That she knew what she wanted. And she knew that she needed money to do this. And she knew that she was going to keep going and asking for the money. And somewhere, and I can imagine, the first no is always hard. The 10th no is probably really hard too. Like I get told no a lot, and I haven't done the 100 people yet, right? And what's probably even frustrating is that it's like, you have a good idea. It's a good idea because you may be talking to other people about your idea and they're telling you, oh, it's a great idea. Oh, wow, we really need that. Oh, you should get some money to make that work. And can you imagine, like, all of those things are happening and you're feeling this thing inside of you that's a sinking feeling because you're getting all these no's. And at the same time, somebody may be saying, yeah, man, you should go do that thing. Over 100 no's. And so this morning when I open my email and I get the no, I'm like, okay, one, or 10. Like, I just start counting. I'm going to write to this woman and just tell her that I've started counting my no's because of her. So there had to be some sort of alignment with what she actually wanted. Because if she wasn't aligned with what she wanted, then all this contrast that she was getting would have had her come to the conclusion that she's not supposed to have it. She's not supposed to build this business. She's not supposed to help the people out there that were waiting for this piece of software for them to get the help. Like me, I use Canva literally almost every day. And if she had stopped at no number 30 or no number 35, I would not be sat here today doing my own graphics and not having to hire somebody on Fiverr to do it for me. You see what I'm saying? So that's a clear, distinct desire. And that's clear contrast. And she used alignment with her desire to keep going. She had to have alignment with her desire to keep going. Oh, before I forget, the card for today. This is what we're picking today. I have literally both pairs of my glasses here. I'm grabbing whichever one is closest. So this woman that I was using as an example, she was unfathomable. I love this time. My artist that I worked with on my cards was amazing. As I am unfathomable. That's the intention. The intention is to be unfathomable. And the affirmation says, I create my own opportunities and lean into the courage to fulfill it. You guys getting that? That's so good. I create my own opportunities and lean into the courage to fulfill the desires of my heart. It takes courage to use the contrast in your life to set yourself up for a different conclusion than the one you have been getting. Somebody should write that down. It takes courage to use the contrast in your life to come up with a different conclusion than the one you have been getting. I don't even know how I come up with this stuff. Somebody write it down and send it to me. Right? And it does take courage. It does take courage because aside from the alignment, here's the second thing you have to get. You have to get into a space of trust. So you have to align yourself with what you want, and then you got to trust the process. And that's another part where some of us get tripped up. Me for sure. I for sure get tripped up in trusting the process. And so I really have to pull on that inner courage. I have to pull on the courage that is necessary for me to use this contrast as leverage. Because if I decide, because it's your conclusion, if I decide that from this experience of not getting what I want or not feeling what I want is happening when I want it to happen, If I stick to that conclusion, that means I'm not trusting the process that I have put myself in to get to the goal that I desire. And so trusting the process is essential. It is critical, because when things don't seem to change at the way or the pace or, in the timing that you want, it just it's a difficult thing for your brain to process. Keep going. Of course, it's a difficult thing for your brain to process, keep going. And then we start arguing for our limitations. We start arguing for our limitations because we're not trusting the process, right? That's the whole reason I'm here in Canada. I'm here in Canada because I decided that I was going to take the courage to trust a process that I can't see clearly. I don't have the exact answers. But I'm sat here now for a couple of days with these other founders, and I'm realizing that on this journey of building a business or creating this idea from nothing into something, I have to trust. Many persons show up with their ideas and they get money and then they still fail and they still try again. They may not try that same business, but they still try to have their own company to solve problems for people. It doesn't always have to look the same way. Relationships is the way. That's one of the big things, is that sometimes we end up in relationships and the entire relationship is contrast. It's just filled with all these different ways, these red flags that are telling you no, no, no in this relationship. It does not mean you should not have the love of your life. It doesn't mean that. It may just mean that this particular person is not meant to be in your life in that way, or that you are not supposed to be experiencing love in this way. Or maybe now is not the time for you to have the love of your life. It's the same thing with babies and having children. I know many persons, not many, I know a few people who have tried many times to have children and have failed, and then amazing things happen and they have beautiful families. And that is hard to deal with. That's hard to get over. I remember Michelle Obama, her book talking about miscarriage. And can you imagine that? To then go beyond that and still decide that you're going to choose to try to create a family. And some persons, it don't work out and they adopt. So what I'm saying, guys, is that contrast is your gateway to creating the life that you want. It's literally just the opposite of the coin that gives you exactly what you want when you want it. So sometimes you'll ask for something and you get it like that. Other times you'll ask for something and you get contrast. All the contrast is doing is helping you to get to what you want. It's the same process. You are never denied. You may be delayed, but you are never denied. And the only two things that it's asking you to do, well, maybe three. First, recognize that contrast is happening for you, not against you. Second thing, when you recognize that there's contrast happening in your life, it's time for alignment. Align yourself with what you truly want. And then the third thing is trust. You got to trust the process. You got to trust the process so that you can actualize this thing that you desire. Stay focused on that vision. Stay focused on the experience, the feeling that you are going after. Life is always on your side. You just got to know that at a deeper level and keep going. All right. So, guys, as you head out into your Saturday, be unfathomable. Yeah, be unfathomable. Right? You want to create your own opportunities. And that comes with understanding that even when things aren't going the way that you want them to go, that you're still on the right path. All right. Thanks so much for joining Tea Times, ladies and gentlemen. I just love coming and having these conversations with you. Please, please, please make sure that you follow if you're not already following me so you can get the short clips that are going to be coming out from these long conversations. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I am Stacey Hines, where more of these videos are shared. Take care, guys, and have an amazing Saturday. And look out for the contrast. Look out for the contrast, but do not be deterred by it. All right? Take care, everybody. Bye.